All right, good morning. I'm sorry, good morning. Good evening, everybody. It's May 14th, 2025, and the regular meeting of the Murrieta Planning Commission is called to order. Madam Secretary, would you call roll for the determination of a quorum, please?
Thank you, Chair. Chair Vrooman.
Here.
Vice Chair Wojcik.
Here.
Commissioner LaPaglia.
Here.
Commissioner Beamish. Commissioner DeSena.
Here.
Let the record reflect all commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Beamish with the absence.
All right, thank you. Would each of you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we move on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Seeing none?
Okay, with none, I'd like to call for a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Do we need to use the keypads on this for the motion and the second? Okay.
So we have a motion by Commissioner LaPaglia and a second by Commissioner DeSena. Would you, Madam Secretary, can you call for a roll call vote, or are we using the tablets?
Oh, no, I'll do a roll call vote.
Okay.
Chair Vrooman.
Aye.
Vice Chair Wojcik.
Aye.
Commissioner LaPaglia.
Aye.
Commissioner DeSena.
Aye.
Let the record reflect motion carries 4-0.
All right, thank you. Next, we move on to public comments. Excuse me. Do we have, Madam Secretary, do we have anyone that has submitted their name for public comments?
Seeing none?
Okay. Since we have none, then we'll close the public comments, and we're now moving on to the approval of minutes. And with the packet, we had the minutes of approval for the February 12th, 2025 regular Planning Commission meeting. Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public requesting to speak on the approval of minutes?
Seeing none?
Okay, I'd like to call for a motion and a second. I believe that meeting, we had only 3 people present for that meeting on February 12th.
Correct.
And so we have 3 of us here, so I'd like to call for a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
Allowed?
Yes, I believe we're doing a roll call, not by tablet, correct?
By tablet.
Oh, by tablet on this time, okay.
Yeah.
We need a motion and a second.
So we need a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner DeSena,
And I'll second.
second by Commissioner LaPaglia. Time to register our votes.
It says. Can we, yeah.
Oh,
The tablet had a malfunction. I think we need to back it up
okay.
because that's second.
How's that?
The 12th.
No, I think Commissioner DeSena and LaPaglia and myself were
three
here.
of us were here, I thought.
The 3 of us were at that meeting.
Yes. It has me and LaPaglia marked as absent.
Yes.
So it's Tom, Mike, and Brenda. But if you've reviewed the minutes, you can vote on it.
Well, I should abstain then because if I was not here on the 12th,
12th of February, yes.
I'm sorry. If I wasn't here, I should abstain. So
I was going to do the same thing, so I'm not sure we can move this forward tonight.
You can,
I don't know if they're accurate.
you can continue it to the next meeting then, if that's what the commission would desire.
Well, I guess what's reflected in the minutes are the people that were there, and is that incorrect as to the people that were?
No, that's who was here. It was Beamish, DeSena, and Vrooman that was here.
Okay, so we don't have the 3 people that were we don't have three of the people that were here.
Right. So if you recall, we dealt with this a couple months back, right? Where there were commissioners who'd then gone off the commission and we were still voting on minutes with new commissioners, right? So it's really if you've had a chance to review the minutes and you're comfortable voting on that was the action of the commission that you review in the minutes, you're okay. But if you'd like to continue into the next meeting so that you have time to review the minutes, I think that would work as well.
I'll make a motion that we continue the approval of the February 12th, 2025 meeting minutes to another meeting.
I'll second that.
Would you like to take a roll call vote on that since it's probably not preloaded in the tablet?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Chair Vrooman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wojcik,
Aye.
Commissioner LaPaglia,
Aye.
Commissioner DeSena.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously to continue the minutes to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Next item up is a discussion item. We have a presentation and discussion of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update and Trails Master Plan. May we have a staff report, please?
You may. Good evening,
evening,
Chair,
Leah.
Vice Chair, Commissioners, and members of the community. My name is Leah Kolick. I am the Parks and Community Services Manager for the City of Murrieta. It is my pleasure to be here with you at tonight's Planning Commission meeting. I hope you're as excited as I am to discuss something truly significant for our community, our Parks and Recreation Master Plan update, and the unveiling of our new Trails Master Plan. To give you a bit of context for why we're here, the original Parks and Recreation Master Plan, adopted in 1999, laid the foundation for so many of the amenities and recreational opportunities we now cherish as a community. Fast forward to today, and we see a city that has grown substantially, not just in population, but in the scope of services and facilities we provide. With over 115,000 residents, 53 parks, and miles of trails now under our stewardship, we are at an exciting crossroads. These updated plans will ensure that we continue to enhance the quality of life in Murrieta for generations to come. Tonight, we are fortunate to have the exceptional team from RJM Design Group joining us. Over the past 16 months, Zach and Kristen and their team have worked hand in hand with city staff, community stakeholders, and residents to develop these plans. Their dedication has included focus group meetings, stakeholder interviews, community workshops, surveys, and even dedicated project websites to keep everyone informed and involved. I want to take a moment to thank the RJM team for their extraordinary efforts and partnership. I also want to acknowledge the incredible work of our city project team for these master plans. Director of Community Services, Brian Ambrose, Management Analyst, Crystal Aurora, and of course, our city planner, Carl Steele. Now, without further ado, I'm delighted to turn things over to Zach with RJM Design Group, who will provide us with a brief overview of their findings, recommendations, and so on for both the master plans.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be invited back to present what is more than a year's worth of effort and working with the community and listening to everyone to develop what we have here today, which is really a guide. It's an implementation tool to look forward into the future and identify the management and development of recreation facilities and programs here. The most important thing about this document is it's based on local Murrieta community. It's based on your local community, not a national standard, not a best management practice that we apply across the entire nation. No, it's only about your community, what they're looking for, and what they would like to see. As I mentioned, over a year-long process, we went through 5 stages. We began with an inventory of the existing conditions, went through an extensive community outreach process for several months, looked at the needs analysis, combining all the information we heard from the community, balanced that with the inventory, and then developed the needs analysis, which ultimately gave way to recommendations. And from those recommendations, we developed funding and implementation strategies all the way to where we are here today in our presentation. As part of some of those background research elements, before we went to the community, we looked at elements such as the demographics. What is the largest portion of the community? What is the largest segment? We see here 37% from 35 to 64. We matched that with some of the county averages. That wasn't the end-all be-all, but just the beginning point to see what might we hear in terms of community programs and community facilities desired by the residents here. Then we continue to go through 53 parks, 3 community centers, 2 recreation buildings spread out across the entire community. We looked at the programs, 2 years of program histories, everything including arts and crafts, dance, health, seniors, sports programs, as well as special events. With that background, we then went to the community at large and had stakeholder interviews. We conducted a statistically valid multimodal survey. We had 3 in-person workshops, 3 virtual online workshops, as well as a project website that had dedicated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, up to tonight feedback options for the community. They can go on tonight, click on the feedback button and share their thoughts. Zach, I forgot about this and wanted to tell you. We constantly monitor that information. So as we share information on the website, we build that two-way dialogue with the community. You also see here, every time we record information, we geolocate it. So that way, as we start to see trends on elements that people are looking for, we can see if there's a geographic trend. We can see how it ties to the demographics. We can see how it ties to local communities, not just the entire region, but in certain specific sub-areas. We received over 3,900 data points as part of this outreach process, with the workshop participation ranging from 100 to 237 participants for both online and in-person workshops combined. With all of that information, based on all the data we collected, we develop a qualitative analysis, which develops this matrix here, which illustrates a prioritized needs matrix. Essentially, if we heard something such as community engagement, marketing of programs, if we heard that in every outreach mode we went to the community in, both qualitative and quantitative, it moves up to the frequent category at the top. Apparent is where we heard it in 2 of our outreach modes. And then identified has only been identified in 1 outreach mode. So we can start to see a prioritization of this, because as we go through and we look at potential funding strategies, we want to make sure we have the biggest splash, the best bang for our buck as we go out into the community to either build programs or facilities. And we can see here, based on the amount of information we collected from the community, the number of times it came up, a prioritization list that illustrates community engagement, marketing of programs offered being one of the highest elements, pickleball classes or pickleball league, swimming classes, as well as apparent items including community events, having more community events, having fitness and exercise classes, senior activities and classes, as well as teen and youth programs. Now, there are several other items listed in this prioritization matrix, and these depend on funding strategies. As funding becomes available, because it is fluid as we go forward into the future, you can start to pick and choose any of these items based on their funding capabilities or their funding availability, based on grants or what might come up. But you can see here some of those highest elements based on the community outreach. Oops, go backwards. We also did this with the facilities. And those facilities that came up in that same site analysis, that same outreach process, we heard add more sports fields, bike trails, improve cleanliness of parks and facilities and trails, modernize and upgrade all parks and facilities, pickleball courts, restroom maintenance, a swimming pool, walking paths and hiking trails. The apparent category, we heard dog parks, improve safety, playground improvements, splash pad, and water parks. As we looked at all that information, we developed key strategies, and those key strategies then gave way to different goals and elements where we identify in the reports very specific items that identify what the existing conditions are, what we heard from the community, where we heard it from the community, and then the recommendation, the goal that supports these key strategies. Those key strategies include prioritizing the multi-use facility development to meet the recreational needs of the community, elements such as increasing sports fields, improving California Oaks Sports Park, continuing the development of the Los Alamos Hills Sports Park, continuing to develop the dog park at Glen Arbor Park, looking at additional pickleball facilities. And key strategy 2, implement a comprehensive maintenance and upgrade plan to continue Murrieta's high standards of quality and user satisfaction. Some of those goals that we developed specifically are improved safety through enhanced lighting, crime prevention through environmental design standards, modernizing and upgrade facilities, looking at assessments and life cycle analysis for replacing some of those worn elements. As those elements are replaced, looking at universal design standards for elements such as universal play, inclusive play. Continuing on, creating key strategy number 3, create an integrated trail network that promotes active transportation, enhances outdoor recreational opportunities, as also recommended in the Trails Master Plan. I'm not going to go in depth on that one because we'll hear about that in just a few minutes. Key strategy number 4 was design an aquatic facility that caters to diverse age groups and skill levels that promotes water safety. Some of those elements include swim classes, aerobics classes, water aerobics classes, looking at renovations to the Cal Oaks Sports Park, Cal Oaks Pool, as well as looking at infrastructure to devise some of those smaller spray play elements that are more cost effective and little mister elements, not large spray play equipment. And then the last key strategy, develop an outreach campaign that leverages local partnerships with personalized communication to promote a diverse range of community events and programs. Elements such as multi-channel communications are identified in the report, increasing staff collaboration with local organizations, develop diverse fitness programs, expand senior activities, and developing low-impact fitness programs, and expanding the teen and youth programs were all items identified specifically within the report. As we go through, the report also itemizes specific dollar amount recommendations for several projects included in the CIP as well as found through the master planning process. And what we identified was $12.6 million in funded park, recreation facility, and trail improvement projects, but there are also $52.8 million in unfunded park, recreation facility, and trail improvement projects, as well as projects that were found through this master planning process. With that, I know it was a short presentation, but it was more than a year's worth of study as we went through the community, as we went through all the parks and facilities. I really do appreciate your time on this, and if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I'll go ahead and start at the far end. Mr. LaPaglia, do you have
Yeah, thank you.
comments,
Thank you for the
questions?
presentation. Always enjoy seeing what's kind of coming up in the community, and especially new parks. I've got 3 young kids that are 7, 5, and 3, so we pretty much have a permanent resident at every park around here, I feel like. Where does park budget come from?
So our operating budget, or are you discussing in general?
No, not
capital
operating
improvement?
budget, for capital improvement, I guess. Like, is it?
Capital improvement budget primarily comes from development, park development impact fees. We have 3 sets of development impact fees. We have community center development impact fees, open space development impact fees, and park development impact fees. Those are our primary funding sources.
So for every development, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, anything, has those fees associated with their development fees and
Currently, park development impact fees and community center development impact fees are collected. Open space development impact fees are kind of on a pause at the moment because we have quite a bit in our reserve budget. So that would probably come back up again in the fee schedule, not fee schedule, the DIF study, the Nexus study for development impact fees. So that'll come back up as a discussion again, looking at where we're at in terms of that funding source, and then where we need to go.
Okay, thank you. And how about like current operating costs and maintenance upkeep?
Oh, that's an interesting discussion. If we had more than 15 minutes, I would give you a operating discussion, CSD, Community Services District 101. But for right now, just know that there are 3 essential buckets of funds that make up the operating portion of the Community Services District. And they were funds that were voted in by the property owners back in 1997. And I could definitely go down a rabbit hole on that, but I will spare you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Man, we kind of did fly right through that. Can you go back to maybe slide 2 or slide 3? Maybe one more back. Trying to think of these numbers. These little bubbles, these comment bubbles, the 20, numbers 1 through 35 or something. Are these just outlining like the parks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, those are our current park locations.
Okay. And the trail network, we're going to talk about that a little bit later?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All the parks that are maybe upcoming, and maybe we'll talk about it later, these are going to be public parks, or like does the city have any property that's currently owned and zoned for future park development once funds are appropriate to build?
We do have a number of city-owned parcels that will eventually become parks once we identify funding sources for them.
Okay. Okay. Is there ever any like private capital raise for parks? Like, is there like any fundraising or any type of events that the city can hold to do that?
Fundraising is a unique animal in and of itself. Brian would know that right now because he's going through that very interesting process right now with the library expansion of the children's wing. So if it pans out that it might be a viable option, I'm sure we'll be looking at that as a possibility in the future.
Okay. I think it'd be kind of cool to if there was like a public outreach or like a notification of maybe a couple parks, let's just say it as an example, like, hey, to build this park at this property, the city needs to raise $1 million, $10 million, $100,000, whatever it is. So there's kind of like a number to associate with it. I'm sure there's a ton of work behind that, a ton of organization behind that, but I don't know, just thinking, if you could see that on your Instagram or on your phone or something that was accessible, it would be interesting to see, maybe what kind of funding would come from, private resources.
Currently, one of the best kind of funding opportunities that the city is possibly looking to explore is public-private partnerships. So that would be probably less hassle-free path than with fundraising efforts, grassroots fundraising efforts.
Sure. Well, okay, and that actually brings up a great point that I've been meaning to ask for this meeting. Is there anything on the city's radar to build some type of bike park known as a pump track, a jump park, things like that? Or are we discussing that tonight, or is there anything in the works for that?
That is definitely one of the recommendations, one of the higher amenity features that came out in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We have a couple of ideas possibly where to put a pump track. Again, it comes down to funding.
Okay. How could the public understand, or what could we do to notify the public about building a pump track? I'm a two-wheel guy, always have been, lived here in Murrieta since 1988, and grew up riding my bike around town and building jumps and having jumps torn down by, city as we were trespassing, so rightfully so. But, you see these popping up. Of course, you guys see these in every city, from San Clemente to Huntington Beach to Lake Elsinore and maybe Menifee and Temecula. I think that's like a unique demographic of people and kids and families that would want to, invest or maybe donate or help raise money to build something like that. We are stick and ball sports people as well, so we're at the baseball fields and soccer fields often, and the city could use 10 more of those because I know how crowded they are. But we do have a good number of fields that we are already in use and already being utilized, and there is not an option for any two-wheel biking. And as we can all see, not necessarily e-bikes, but it's become so popular in the last 5 or 6 years. I would almost like to see my personal opinion, if we could maybe focus more or focus something specifically on that, or have some type of, again, public outreach to the community to say hey, if we want this, this is what we need. So,
Well,
do what you
this
can.
is a great starting point.
Sure.
Parks and Recreation Master Plan update is where we need to be right now in identifying these particular features and amenities, and then having the public, engaging the public with this document, making their thoughts known to their representative, their council representative, and when staff proposes to the city council as we go through the CIP budget process, we look and see where the certain features and amenities have fallen within this master plan, because this is our guiding document. This is what we will follow and recommend to city council. So as funding becomes available, we prioritize based off of this tool, this guiding tool, and we bring that before before council. But of course, the public, we reached out to the public to try and engage them in this document and get their feedback. And this is a good basis to start off. We also keep a list. We get phone calls every week from residents wishing to have more shade over tot lots or more drinking fountains or trails. We keep a list of that as well. And we dig out that list every budget cycle, and we look to see where we can use the existing funding in the best locations based off of these guiding documents.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, you know, it's, and I couldn't agree more that this is the best time and like a good first step to do that. The public being aware of, you know, whether it's a general plan amendment or update, or if it's this park and rec update. I've always felt, I don't know how long I've been on the commission for, 6 or 7 years, but it seems like it's always a surprise to like residents that like, oh, this is happening right now, right? And I know it's no one's fault. It's just like you can only do so much to reach out and notify people as you can. On that note, though, and kind of circling back to your private partnership with parks, I really feel, and while I got you right here, I really feel that living in the area that we live in with all the motocross and mountain bike and bicycle like influence that we have, that would be a great opportunity to reach out to these public parties, private companies is what I meant to say, private companies, to do some type of joint venture to build, a BMX pump track facility. If I could be of any help to facilitate that, I'd be happy to. I have a network of people that would be interested.
Writing your name
Yeah,
down?
right. From KTM to Trolley Designs to, a number of companies that are here. But I don't know. Maybe we could try to focus on that more and see that through. I think that would be very doable.
So 2 comments on that.
Sure.
Staff just recently went to, I believe, the city of San Juan Capistrano to attend their soft opening.
San Clemente. Right, that was a big one.
San Clemente, my right next to each other.
Okay, yeah.
San Clemente, and they discussed the public-private partnership that was used to build that facility. And I believe it was Shimano was the entity that helped fund that. So it's definitely something that the staff will be looking into as we move with these facilities. And then just another point, the birthday bash has been going on with the city since 2001 was when we first had fireworks, and people that lived here for 30 years still don't realize we have fireworks.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of it. Sometimes I'm driving home right past City Hall and I turn left on Calmia here and there's an event going on. I'm like, how did I not know about this? Like, I should be the #1 guy to know. But yeah, it's just nature of the beast. Yes. It is what it is. Well, that's all I have. Let's see here. Anything with Hunt Field? I heard Hunt Field's coming up for renewal, and is that pretty much grandfathered in with the Little League? So
Hunt Field is a unique situation. Hunt Field came to the city of Murrieta, I believe in 2009. We acquired the community center, and along with that, Hunt Field. In that purchase and sale agreement, it was grandfathered in that Little League would have first right of refusal to that ball field. So we have an agreement with Little League that allows them to use the facility first, should they not need it on a particular day or a particular season. If they ever decide to give a season up, then we would open it up during our biannual field allocation policy or meeting.
Okay. So that's kind of part of the I don't want to call it a purchase agreement, but donation agreement, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was a purchase and sale agreement.
Purchase and sale agreement. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for your time. Thanks for answering my questions. Super excited about this. So I'll pass the mic to the next commissioner. Thank you.
We'll go to Commissioner DeCina.
Well, I'm excited about this. Everything Parks and Rec. How many people responded to this?
Go back to the one slide.
So you can see here on this slide, what this is also identified in the book, the document too. We had a number of people participate all across the community. When we go through our community engagement, we look at the distribution. You can see this on the right side is actually a multimodal survey. we had a great distribution across that. When I look at these from the workshops to the online, to the in-person, to how many website views we had, to the comments, the feedback online, everything from the stakeholder interview, we have almost 4,000 data points to go through. Now, a lot of that is when I start to look at it, that also includes a sports organization survey. So when we go out, we count cleats on feet. How many sports teams do you have? We have a sports organization survey that goes specifically to those groups. So that way it's not just, did we capture a lot of people, but did we get all the groups? Did we have an opportunity for the sports to participate? We made sure we had the statistically valid phone survey, which is representative of the demographics. And we see that as also geographically representative. So we do that as we go through this whole engagement process. In fact, we had higher than average workshop turnouts for just the open-ended general workshops as well throughout the process.
Okay. So, because these numbers here represent how many people have engaged with this.
So each one of them, we had 14 stakeholder interviews specifically. We had 494 individual surveys turned in as part of our outreach process. We had almost 500 households surveyed through the multimodal survey, and because that's a family household, that's representative of your community. That's almost 50, that represents 1,525 in there. And then when we go through the sports organization surveys are filled out by the organizations themselves, but that represents 6,600 players. So as I say, count cleats on feet, that's just a metaphor. I'm not actually going out and counting them, but we look at how many kids play in that league.
Okay.
How often do they play? Where do they play? And that way we can start to formulate a algorithm to say, all right, if I'm going to play all my games on Saturday, when we practice Monday through Friday, if we're going to play all our games on Saturday, how many fields do we need to have? If our game is an hour long, you have 30 minutes between games, this is how many fields you should have. So we go through that analysis, but it's different for each outreach mode.
Okay. So how did you pick the 50 households?
The households are done at random. So it's a random distribution survey as they go through. We actually have our survey analysts do that, and that's a political pollster as well. So they have access to cell phone numbers. They have access to home landline phone numbers. We have several different media modes that we go out to the community. End of the day, they have to hit so many different households to make it statistically valid, but they also have to hit the demography as well too. So when we collect the data, we actually make sure it matches the demography, and then we go back and review the distribution as well to see that that's accurately representative of the community. So it's done at random.
Okay. And because there's some fields around town that have a little less love than other fields, specifically Cal Oaks. And I know you mentioned Cal Oaks sports field. I mean, from the bathrooms to the pool, obviously, I know that's being kind of worked on. But the softball fields, so the way the girls play softball there, and I think there's some other leagues, like there's a kickball league, there's a few other things that take place there. But specifically the girls, the girls can't even hold tournaments here. And we have to go to other cities to go for all their tournaments. They're all-star tournaments, travel team, all that. Even Temecula we'll have to travel to. I say we because I coach it, and my daughters both play, so I'm stuck on softball fields year-round. That's another story. But, that field is just really run down. So when you're looking at these fields, although there's community involvement, you're kind of putting the top priority like pickleball. And yeah, I love pickleball, so I'm not complaining too much about it. But are you going to these different parks and are you prioritizing based on how run down they are or how they look? There's not even home run gate, fences back there for the girls to play on. But we're getting soccer fields and we're getting, some stuff that's maybe overshadowing it. So I'm just wondering how you're looking at it, in terms of that.
So when we do our facility inventory, we go through and we look at the field conditions, since we're talking about that one specifically. But we also look at everything else, including deferred maintenance schedules. We look at your current CIP lists. So we build those into what we see. So that way, the recommendations at the end of the document, as we identify different elements in there, we will list some of those that need improvements, whether it be restrooms or field maintenance. We do identify those, but we strategize everything on the prioritization based on the community input. However, when you see there's a lot of other inputs at the bottom of that matrix, that's everything else that we have heard as well too, plus our professional recommendations. So we do include them in there, but we don't push them to any priority if we didn't hear it in the community outreach process. They are identified. but we let the community prioritize all the different elements.
Okay, so the recommendation needs to be for either city council or for even just us hearing this today is to push this out more, because I never even heard this was going on, to be honest with you. And I guarantee you nobody in like some of the fields have either, because everyone complains about it. I'm not saying you didn't push it out. I know you probably did, but.
Well, girls softball in particular, they sent out and they gave me a copy of the email that went to every single player's parent in their season last year. So I have a copy of that email. The president of girls softball shared that with me and encouraged everybody to go onto the dedicated website for this and push for the needs for girls softball. So I know that went out.
This is the failure. It's the parents. It's me. I'm the problem.
So I'm
No, I never. I'll be honest. We never saw it, and we look at all of our emails. But if it did go out, then that is the problem, and we do need to pay attention to our emails then. So
I did not go in depth in it. Usually I do a 45 to 50-minute presentation. It's a lot to pack into. Year's worth of study. We do on some of those specific ones I'll read right now. The goal 1.1 of Key Strategy 1 does talk about specifically developing Los Alamos Hills Sports Park expansion, emphasis placed on multi-purpose fields, improving lighting and bleachers at the ball fields at Cal Oak Sports Park. So we do get into specific recommendations in here. When you dive down to some of those elements, they are listed in here, but everything comes down to money at the end of the day.
yeah, okay.
And if I may, Chair. So when it comes down to money, do I understand this right, that each league participates financially to maintenance, Little League, Pony, girls softball, and you kind of get like a priority based on how much money you bring to the table?
So the fees for field use are part of the annual fee schedule every year that's discussed. So there's deposits that the leagues pay that are refundable. There are non-residency fees. So for every non-resident of the league, they pay a $10 additional charge. And then there are field use fees. And I don't have it with me, but I can certainly provide it to you. It's online that describes how much per field each league needs to pay. So I didn't bring that data with me, but I'm happy to provide it at a later date. But it's not, it is equivalent to what other cities pay. It's nothing more than what other cities recommend charging for their leagues as well.
Mm-hmm. So do certain sports or certain sports or fields in particular that are being used for those sports, do they get a different, not treatment, but do they get different, looked at differently for okay, they're bringing this much to the table, there's this many people playing that sport, because you said that earlier, right? There's this many people playing that sport, this is how popular it is, and that kind of gets onto that top higher level of the list that you had there. So how are we kind of mitigating that so that the fields are kind of evenly distributed? Or is it just based on, I guess, fees that are coming in? He's talking about the fees for maintenance and how much money they're bringing to the table.
It's not based on how much money they're bringing to the table. It's based on the need.
Okay.
So for soccer, for example, if I'm understanding you correctly, soccer, for example, is one of the most popular sports in the city, and they have upwards of 1,500 players a season. Girls softball, however, is right around 500 players a season, which is similar to pony, baseball, and Little League. They each have about 650 players per season. So it's based on how many players register for that season, and I would think that the surveys reflect that need.
And if I could jump in here as well, Commissioner, each of the leagues also, we provide a minimal level of service for the fields.
Sure.
Some of the leagues, such as soccer, take it upon themselves to ask for a higher level of service, and they pay for that or they contract directly. So soccer will pay per season for a higher level of service.
So that's an option too.
That is 100% an option. And we sit down with softball at least once a year with the board and try to get a punch list of items that do need to be fixed.
Okay, thank you.
And
very
we've
much.
talked about the home run fence multiple times. So we'll provide a minimal level of service. We do ask with new infrastructure going in that they help us, they assist with the payment. The home run fence has been talked about for, I want to say 2 to 3 years.
I want to say 2 years.
So
at least,
we're just
yes.
working out the agreement with them.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Wojcik.
Yeah, thank you. So the current slide that's up with all the engagements that you had, comparatively speaking, with a city our size, is this kind of average? Is it a little bit high? Is it on the low end?
You're above average.
Oh, that's good. So we're still irresponsible, but not that irresponsible.
Sorry, my microphone was on. You're above average on that. Staff did a
Okay.
great job getting the word out, and as we go through, diving into a lot of the data points, there are a lot of elements that are learned in here too, of where we got data from, how the community heard data, and staff can then utilize that information that we collected on, did they get it from websites, did they get it from AFREMs, and retool and refocus some of those outreach efforts as you go forward to make sure you get more and more and more. Because you want to go to where the people are. Where are the people getting their information from? Now we have access to that based on this survey information that's also in the report that staff can now utilize to increase those numbers as you move forward.
Staff hit every single school, after-school event, every single event. We had a booth. Market nights, we had booths. We had, we went to the groups. We didn't wait for them to come to us. So we reached out a lot. Lots of donuts bought and lots of bribery made.
Whatever it takes. So after looking at this slide, can you go to the slide that had the priorities of what people would like to see built in terms of infrastructure?
That one or the next one? I think it's
I think
that
there was the one back. Go back one.
Oh, that
Yeah,
one.
that one.
Facilities.
Facilities, right. So it looks like pickleball courts 1, if I read this correctly.
Pickleball courts as well.
That's like the number 1 that people, okay.
Yes.
And then looks like there's a bunch of 4s. So I guess other than restroom maintenance, we have a lot of ties at category 4, which would be more sports fields and I guess cleanliness. Just trying to see what they want new in terms of constructed. It looks like it's pickleball courts, swimming pool, walking trails and bike trails, and then the rest is just kind of modernizing and cleaning things up. Okay. So there was a slide that you had that said, I believe it was $12 million is funded, 50 some odd millions unfunded. Mm-hmm. So when we were talking about those 3 buckets of funding sources, in total, what do those funding sources collect on an annual basis?
That would be part of the development fee nexus study. And again, I apologize, I don't have that.
That's okay.
How much per single family dwelling or project pays towards those development impact fees.
So if I look at pretty much if we're in a perfect world and we want to completely invest and do what we need to do, we got to come up with $58 million. Over what course of time would it take to get the $58 million? In other words, am I ever going to see this implemented in my lifetime?
Well, you won't see $52 million worth of projects because it's a little bit more complex than that. There's always the operating costs associated with that. Right now, we have 53 parks, and with the staffing level that we have, it's very difficult for us to keep up with the maintenance of the bathrooms, more additional parks, as well as the fields. So when we build new facilities, when we build new parks, I'll take, for instance, Pioneer Park. It's over on 2nd Street, 2nd and B. Large parcel would be great for a city park, but we just can't maintain it to the service level that we need. So if we build it and then it deteriorates, we'll hear more complaints from that. So while there's $52 million worth of projects that the community wants, that would be not possible for us to build and maintain.
That was what I was afraid of, is just kind of a little bit of a pipe dream.
pipe dream.
Okay.
So now we take a look at what the individuals that took part in the master plan process feel is a priority, and we try to match their priorities with the city's priorities as well as budgeting.
So is that the 12 million figure then, that the
The
12 million
is
will
currently funded.
currently funded for whatever those priority items are?
Correct.
Was there a slide, maybe I missed it, was there a slide that showed where that 12 million is going to go towards?
It's actually in the master plan document.
Okay.
Yeah. Part of one of those 100-page
I was going to say, you don't know what page, do you? It was like,
Yeah.
I think our packet was like 2,000 pages between both.
Correct.
Yes.
Issues tonight. Okay. Let's see. That was all I had. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, well, I just want to say what a great report to our consultant. It was very clear, concise. It was a long read. It was a lot of information in there. And I have to say, you know, being a 33-year resident of the city, we've come a long way as a city. And when we first had our parks, it was part of the county service area 143. And Leah worked there and joined the Murrieta team when the city took over the parks from the county. And we've done, I think, a masterful job of things. And we've continued to offer a great service over the years. Well, still, I know councils past have decided, you talked about the maintenance fee. I still remember, every year we get in the postcard in the mail saying, hey, we're going to keep the rates capped at, I think it's $43 and change or something like that.
Excellent memory. $45 per EBU.
Yes. So basically, yeah, anything over that, you know, comes out of the general fund, right? And so it competes with everything else,
Yes,
police,
yes.
fire. Well, fire has their fire district, but also, the general fund contributes to them as well too. So it's a competing fund in order to keep the maintenance going. But so, like to your point, Brian, as we bring more facilities online, we also have to maintain them. And so really, because of that $45 cap per year per residence, it comes out of the general fund. So as that grows, then we can bring more on. But I would have to say we've done a superb job with that. With that, with CSA 143, we inherited California Oak Sports Park, which is why I'm guessing the pool is in disrepair, because that park's been around for probably 35 plus years, right? So my point, we have two sports parks, obviously, two comprehensive, well, three. But the two I'm thinking of is Los Alamos Hills, which the city built, and then California Oak Sports Park, which that was under the county. So maybe starting with the county built one, California Oak Sports Park. What kind of is the overall general plan with the pool? And you mentioned maybe some home run fences there. I know we're kind of limited on space. We've added a softball field, I believe, or a baseball field on the backside that didn't used to be there, up against what used to be the Thrifties, now the car wash there. So what is, what's kind of the general scope or plan, or what we're going to do with that park?
Do you want?
I'll take it.
Okay.
So we started a plan right at the beginning of COVID let me take a step back. So I think it was 3 years ago. I know it was the 4th of July because I was sitting at home with my neighbors ready to enjoy when the acid tank kind of sprung a leak. And you do not want acid from a pool running down the gutter and the stream, and it did. They closed off a 1 mile radius because it was hazardous material that needed to be cleaned up. That was the end of the pool. We knew for years that we were duct taping the pool. When we initially recommended to council we need to rebuild this pool, it was probably about a $5 to $6 million investment. When the acid tank blew, that price tag was about $12 million, and I'd say it's up to about $15 million today. And we don't have $15 million at this time. That being said, I've had numerous conversations with our new city manager, whose priority is to clean up Cal Oaks before we build another sports park or another park. We just need to figure out where the funding is going to come from. Most likely it'll come from Measure T, but our sales tax is down pretty substantially right now. We're adjusting. We don't expect it to be down for a long period of time. Finance is here, though they might be able to talk about that during the CIP update. We'll get there. Cal Oaks is 100% our priority to rebuild. Mr. Brian Crawford's also in the audience. He's soon going to start a lighting project at the tennis courts, and then we're going to try to fix the skate park as much as possible. We need to get going on the pool. We have, matter of fact, Zach helped us with kind of a drawing of what we would like to see over at the pool. Now it comes down to just putting together the specifications to do so, because most of that park, the kind of that runway, that landing up there is not ADA compatible. So it's not just we're going to remove the pool, we're going to build new bathrooms. We're going to have to tear the whole thing out and build an entire new infrastructure. That costs money. But it is our priority.
Yeah, it was built before ADA was even enacted into law, right?
Correct.
So, so the plan is to keep a pool there at that park, not to just say, hey, you know, to scrap it and maybe move a pool somewhere else in the city?
I don't know that there would be another place that would be better. Now, in the original phase 2 of Los Alamos Hills Sports Park, and we're talking 15 years ago, there was supposed to be an aquatic center, tennis courts, and a few other things. That probably won't work over there, and we do have a private-public partnership moving forward with the soccer league that's out here right now. Outside of Los Alamos Phase 2, I don't see another place that would have the parking lot facilities and restroom facilities that could handle the number of people in a pool.
And
So-
also,
go ahead.
I
No,
apologize.
go ahead.
I was going to note, the facility, Cal Oaks Sports Park facility was built in 1988. It opened in 1989. The field portion, the pool opened in 1991. But it was only had 2 ball fields and no skate park and no superior lighting. We now, the county at the time built between 91 and 93 when CSA 143 came over to the city, and the city had already incorporated, had built the 3rd ball field off of Lincoln, and then girls softball built the other 2 fields, 4 and 5 themselves. We had to kind of go back in after girls softball and do a little bit of cleanup, but it now has 5 ball fields and a skate park. So it does need some TLC because of the additional infrastructure that we put in at that site.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great, great information, great detail. Los Alamos Hills, I know we did phase 1. It's well used over there. So what's kind of the plan? How many more ball fields, soccer fields, whatever, just a general number of what maybe phase 2 would kind of look like that's on the roadmap?
Sure. We're currently underway with an environmental study. The initial proposal, I'm going to kind of look over at Jared, I believe was for 10 or 11 soccer fields and a soccer complex, a stadium. There's numerous environmental barriers over there, including fairy shrimp and a few other things that are going to limit. I believe we might be able to get, I think it's 6 soccer fields, and so we're working with the soccer league to make sure that we can bond out for that as well as sustain that amount of fields. Jared, do you have anything to add?
Good evening, Commission. Phase 2 is a very important project to the city. It was supposed to have a robust number of uses. In the last few years, we've been focusing on soccer. As Brian indicated, environmental is not our friend on that site. And so we're having to have a long-term dialogue with the agencies. Those are state and federal governments that would hold permits that we need to grade. And so the site has increased in its biological evaluation. And so I will be presenting a staff report to City Council in July, and then I'll go from there. But I think anything that has to do with development, the prices are skyrocketing. It's unfair. I know our public really wants to recreate and take their children there, but I can tell you we're working very, very diligently on that one with the goal of additional recreational uses for the public. But that is a very challenged site, and I'm the foremost person to try to accomplish the permitting process on that one. But it will take a lot more time and a lot more money, and the city is being asked to produce quite a lot with a little bit. And so we're being careful that how do we be generous to the public with the limited tax base that we're working with today. But I should have more information for City Council in the next month or two.
Very good. And of course, with that comes more off-street parking, I would imagine, too, because, you know, if you've ever been over there on a Saturday, it's quite busy, and yeah, parking is a premium, and people make up parking spots and things like that, but they do what they got to do. And you mentioned the third sports park. Is that Mapleton?
No, it's Alta Murrieta Sports Park.
Oh, okay.
So that was also county built.
That's right.
It's next to the Barons and,
Right.
yeah, that area over there.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. That one's a little bit smaller in scope, but still, but still part of
Yes.
of our what we have. But I would go back to just comment with the surveys that you were out there. I remember filling out the surveys, so I got the email. And some of the things that were kind of near and dear to me, just with kids and grandkids growing up here in town. You know, I mentioned the sports fields and things like that. So you hit the mark on that. Just based on people that I've talked to, the swimming facilities, the water facilities, those type of things like that, and the pickleball seems to be very popular with people my age. So I don't know why, but yeah, very competitive, and it's kind of the new thing there. So that is I hear about that all the time. So I'm glad I believe the survey and what you got and the information you got and the information that you put forward in the report is statistically valid. It's what we hear in the community time and time again. I would just comment, just my experience when I worked at the county, the P3, great opportunities. I know they have several. They bought onto the kind of the P3 philosophy, and that's the public-private partnership. It's essentially somebody else building it. You pay for it over time. It's like building a house and paying a mortgage, and you get things quicker that way with somebody else's money, as opposed to self-financing and having to raise money over a period of time. And the last thing I would venture to say, the information of events. I'm guessing that marquee that is out at the corner there and the two monitors on the side, that they look to be monitors.
They are.
That they will probably at some point in time advertise some of the civic events and things like that, not only in this park, but maybe, you know, other parks and things like that. So I think that's a great addition there at the corner and a good information.
And those will be turned on very shortly.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
We've got things in the queue ready to go.
Very good. Well, that's all the comments and questions I have. Thank you. And so just as a matter of order, because we also have the trails presentation, should we vote on this first or just wait till that one and just do both at the same time? What would be your recommendation?
I think if it's okay with the commission, we would just go to the next presentation and you vote on both at the end, if that sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, we'll get the next one loaded up.
Okay, well, without further ado, as we develop the Trails Master Plan, again, a lot of the same principles. One of the things that we're known for is community participation. This entire document was done, again, based on local development, local recommendations, that same planning and outreach strategy and process. So we collected, synthesized the information. So the recommendations based on this document are, again, based on the local community needs. Again, here's our timeline on this one. Very similar. Also, the 5 stages where we go through the inventory. We looked at the trail systems. We looked at the trail usage. We conducted a community outreach where we listened to people in all the different modes that we talked about earlier too. Then we balance what you have and what the community is looking for. And that develops the needs analysis, ultimately the recommendations, and then funding and implementation strategies. Very similar element to Parks and Recreation Master Plan, but this one was focused specifically on trails. So as these two projects worked in tandem, we had separate workshops for both of them, separate websites for both of them, so that way there was a clear roadmap apart from each one of them, but we did maximize some of the elements to where when we conducted the multimodal survey, we asked both Parks and Recreation and Trails elements. So as these two projects went in tandem, I managed both of them, so that way if we heard trails for one, we made sure it was carried to the trails. If we heard Parks and Recreation on the other, we made sure that they were both inclusive of each document, of each report, so that way nothing got lost in between them, but they're completely representative of the community. Going through some of that background research there, 19 trails. We looked at the connectivity of those trails. We looked at the usage of those trails. In some areas, we actually video monitored the trails and looked at video logs for participation on those trails. We also looked at anonymized cellular data to see how often people were utilizing those trails and when they were utilizing those trails. As we went through the community outreach process, we conducted the stakeholder interviews, the statistically valid multimodal survey, same 3 in-person workshops, separate, trails focused only, and that had 3 online workshops, live online workshops, as well as a dedicated project website. You can see here some of those numbers as we go through. When we add all those up, the website views, the surveys, the outreach on the workshops, we actually had greater participation level on this one with almost 4,600 data points as we went through this process. And you can see again, we record everything in a distribution pattern. This is the multimodal survey distribution here, but that way we again look at that data points, we look at where people are asking for items, and then we zeroed in on what those trails might be, what they're asking for in those specific areas, and how we can make sure that the recommendations are surgical into specific Murrieta residents in this community. The recommendations ultimately, after going through what we had heard, very focused recommendations because we heard focused information from the community based on trail-specific elements. And those include all the recommendations here listed, trail connections and trail additions. Having contiguous trails, making sure those trails connect and not have mini trail segments, but that they're actual loops, that there's a contiguous trail system of connectivity. Trail signage and wayfinding was another element that we had in the document, or we heard from the community, and we actually started to, in the document, develop some of those you see here on the bottom of the page, looking at what those might look like and how they might be developed within the community here. Trail classification and design standards, we also heard that from the community, and we went, again, developed those trail classifications and standards based on the county elements, based on local city elements, as well as based on U.S. Forest Service elements to provide a trail design standard, as well as trail amenities. When we go through, you can see here in the upper right-hand corner, looking at those trail amenities, what is available on the trails, making sure we match what the community is looking for, and then that maintenance, the level of maintenance to the trails themselves is discussed and recommendations applied into them. Number 6 and 7 here too come into traffic calming and improved visibility on the trails. And then the last one, mapping and data management. That ties in, as we do all of our trail analysis, we geocode a lot of stuff. We put a lot of our stuff in GIS. We've already started that process for you. So as we turn that information over to the city, now you've already got a lot of the bones in place to continue the development of these recommendations. Everything from mapping them, the trail signage, the trail classification, being able to establish the what we found dramatically in this process of the awareness of these trails, the publication of these trails. A lot of people called the trails that they hiked on by their own private names. Oh, well, this is, Overlook Park Trail. This is View Trail. Everybody had their own names for them. So establishing that mapping system, establishing that dialogue, that presentation of trail signage, what the trail name is, these elements will really help solidify and strengthen your trail network with the community as they go through. Again, in here I have an example of some of the recommendations we paired in the report itself. Copper Canyon Trail is identified here on the left. Looking at some of those trail improvements, we identify trail lengths in there. We talk about in the recommendations everything from new sidewalk connections to new trail connections, future trail improvements, traffic sign consistency, trailhead signage, crossings, trailhead amenities, as well as average dollar amounts in there and relative time to implement some of these items, whether they're near-term, midterm, or long-term recommendations. Those are all identified specifically in the recommendations of the report. Again, all based on that same community outreach process. I know this presentation was a little bit shorter on that, but I don't want to replicate all the stuff we had said earlier. It's all based on what we hear from the community. So as we heard it, we assimilated it, we looked at where the comments were coming from, and we made sure those recommendations were, again, based on the community information we'd received. With that, any questions?
Thank you very much. This time I'll start with you, or Commissioner Wojcik.
Thank you for that. The trail plan, is there any, as part of the plan, is there any plan to hook up with the neighboring cities?
Actually, yes. So Murrieta Creek Regional Trail is a 4-city contiguous trail. It starts in Temecula at the southern end and ends in Lake Elsinore at Serenity Park. So the Murrieta Creek Trail Committee actually meets quarterly, and we do our best to discuss the improvements that each city is working towards in implementing the actual Murrieta Creek Regional Trail Plan. But above that, yes, we would love to be able to connect our trails, and that's a lot where Planning Commission will come in as new developments come in. If you see, using this document, if you see that there's a way to connect a trail, we would absolutely love for you to condition that development to connect the trails together.
The funding that we talked about in the prior slides, the 12 million, 50 million, are the trails part of that funding, or is that separate?
So trails can technically come from open space development impact fee funds. Okay. And that's the one that we have a pause on for the moment because we have a good number in kind of a reserve account. But based off of this document, we're going to take the key strategies and recommendations, put more of a dollar amount on it. We have a high concept level in the plan about how much certain things will cost, but we'll take those recommendations, put maybe a truer cost to them, develop an implementation plan, which will end up going through the Parks and Recreation Commission, confirming that priority, and then go to council and confirming that priority as we implement the capital improvement projects moving forward using the open space development impact fees.
All right. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner DeSena.
I don't have any questions. Great job on the research, though. I'm a big research person myself, so just all your analytics and how you did the research is just fantastic, and the way you're polling and the way you're getting out there is just wonderful. So I just wanted to say that. So,
thank you very much.
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you. Could you go back to the first slide where it had a map of all the parks, or excuse me, not all the parks, all the trails? So there is something in place where, you know, the ultimate goal is to try to connect and make loops, I think, as you said. Mm-hmm. It looks like these are pretty spaced out, like they are somewhat one-directional. Are there any on here that are a priority or like close to becoming a loop?
There is, I think it's in the plan, there's an exhibit in the plan that provides a concept of how these can be connected. It looks, instead of like a circle, it's more of a kind of sideways U in connecting all of these trails. And if I can find the page.
That's okay. That's okay. I just didn't know if you knew off the top of your head. But one maybe more specific question: the trail network in the Copper Canyon, Copper Creek area,
yes.
That will come and tuck underneath Kai de Oso Oro, that then kind of parks itself in what was the old Murrieta Airport. Mm-hmm. I believe that property is still owned by the city of Murrieta, correct?
Yes, it is.
And so over the last couple of years, you know, although this year we didn't have a whole lot of rain, but I've noticed, I live over in that area, and I've noticed that it's starting to erode pretty aggressively, where I mean, it's taken upwards of 40 feet of land from just the diversion of water coming through the Murrieta Creek, basically right on the airport. But it seems like that would be a pretty doable connection from from Calle Oso Oro to basically Sykes Ranch Park. You know, it's become pretty popular, like behind, obviously you know where it's at, but taking the trail from, I guess what would be Magnolia or Nighthawk Way, and then tying it in. But then it seems to dead end, like after you go past the residence along Sykes Ranch down into Vineyard, you know, it's got a pretty aggressive dead end, and there may or may not be a couple mountain bike trails to go around it. But from that point south, is there any way to connect it to continue down the Murrieta Creek?
Yes, so that is the Murrieta Creek Regional Trail Plan.
Right.
There is a plan that discusses how to make all those connections. And then the portion that you're talking about in the airport property, there's actually like a fork in the road that goes in two different directions and then reconnects up over in Copper Canyon. So that's all spelled out in the Murrieta Creek Regional Trail Plan, which is referenced in this document. It's also online if you would like to review that. Also, the priority on that is to, because our trail recommendation touches on many parcels that are privately owned, one of the priorities is to get easements from those parcel owners, which is kind of the first phase that the city's working on. And then the second phase is we need 2 bridges over the creek. So we've tried 3 separate grants, and we were declined on 3 separate grants. So those are the 2 priorities on the various connections leading from Temecula up to Lake Elsinore.
I don't know, and I'll be happy to go online, and I definitely will when I get home. But where are those 2 bridges proposed at?
Sykes Ranch Park, and then the other location is just a little south of that.
South of that, okay.
Near Vineyard.
Okay.
Parkway.
Okay. Because it seems like a pretty, you know, and I'm not saying it's a priority or anything, but because it's kind of already has like a natural trail there on city property. You know, the kids walk through the creek, which is dry, you know, 10 months out of the year, and they're able to tie it into Sykes Ranch Park, which is pretty fun. But yeah, it just seems like it's so close to connecting, you know.
Riverside County Flood has some issues with us walking through that creek.
I'm not surprised.
I'm sure you're not. So my apologies, it wasn't Vineyard, it was Copper Canyon.
Copper
where I need
Canyon,
the
yeah,
bridge.
okay.
So I need the bridge over at Copper Canyon Park from the Sycamore track, and then Sykes Ranch Park.
Okay, right.
Because you can get, because I live off of near where Cali Estancia Park is, so that's right at Calmia. You can get from Calmia to the border of Wildemar. You just have to take your life in your hands when you cross Calle de Oso Oro. But I've done that all the way up to Wildemar.
Well, there's a trail that kind of tucks underneath there through the sand, Calle de Oso Oro, right? But getting across Vineyard, across all that riprap.
Yeah, you could take that all the way over to Lemon Street, cross the bridge.
Yep.
You can tuck yourself. We actually city owns the property just to the west of Murrieta Creek right there, the trail that dips underneath to go over to Sykes Park. And then you go over to the airport property. So you go around the water facility over there, get into the airport property, get to Calle de Oso Oro, cross it, and that can get you into Copper Canyon Park.
Right.
And then from there, you take the road that I always forget, and that takes you right to the Wildemar Trail.
Yes.
So it's there. It's all there.
yeah,
It's just maybe not like as defined as it could be, like in some areas. And that's what I feel like.
And some of that is private property. Now, anything south of Calmia is where we start running into problems, because that's going to be either sidewalks or streets. We have a wonderful desire to use the Rancho California Water District property where all of the solar panels are. They don't want us near those $1 million investments that they have there. So we're trying to figure an alternative there. And then down at Murrieta Creek near Cherry and Adams is another crossing we would need to do, and we are not able to do that right now with the flood control district.
So Rancho California is actually blocking a potential like use of like a trail?
I wouldn't say blocking. We don't have an easement there.
Yeah.
So there is a dirt trail.
So
I have keys access to it.
the city of Murrieta would need an easement through
Correct.
Rancho California's property?
Correct. That would be the most direct route.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that those discussions were years ago when we brought it up to them. We're way beyond COVID. I mean, it was probably 2015 is the last time it was addressed with them.
Okay. Okay. One last question, then we can move on. But the what is your guys' communication like with the RCA and the various properties that they own with trails around? I see Brian looking at somebody over here. But, hopefully, at some point in the next couple of years, Murrieta Hills will come online, and the city will inherit a new, annex property of the Murrieta Hills. The RCA, I believe, is taking 700 plus acres with a pretty extensive trail network on it. Mm-hmm. Now, since that's going to be, annexed into the city of Murrieta, as a community, the land that the RCA will own, will Murrieta Park and Rec or our Park and Rec have any involvement with that trail network at what we know as Greer Ranch?
It is hope that we will for Murrieta Hills. It's hope that the development doesn't keep it private just for the residents. That development is currently conditioned to provide us with a public park next to their HOA park. So it is hope that we will be able to have further access to the trail system. But to your question on the RCA and the relationship we have, it depends on the trail. So on this map that's shown right now, trail number 16, which is the Rancho Los Alamos trail system.
The hogbacks, do we call it?
Yes, that's all RCA. And they allow us to go out there. There's mountain biking allowed, trail walking. They patrol the area with their own ranger group.
Yeah.
So depending on the trail system, we have, I think, a decent relationship with the RCA.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I think that will be critical when Murrieta Hills does come online and RCA does take ownership of that property because, it's a huge city feature that, the city likes to promote on their social media already. It's a bit of a destination point for the mountain bike world that draws in. I mean, I'm sure everybody drives down there past the freeway on Scenic View Drive. I mean, it's packed on the weekend when it's in season. It's rattlesnake season right now, so a little less popular. But I think it's important to continue, hopefully or pursue or push a good relationship with them so, we can have a say or, help or control or whatever it would be to keep that trail system established. There is a lot of them do repeat. It can be mitigated, I think, but or reduced, I would say. But it could be a really, really neat thing for the city, a really unique thing that not a lot of our neighbors would have. So hopefully we can achieve that. But that's all I have. Thank you. Super happy to hear about all this stuff. So thank you, guys.
Well, you brought up exactly what I was going to talk about, that Murrieta Hills. Now, that predates me on the planning commission, but the city...
That was a good one.
Yeah, the city annexed it, so it's actually part of the city right now. But I just as a comment, I think the RCA would be very hard-pressed to shut that down and not allow, because you could see cars parked all the way from that area all the way up to Scott Road right there. And so to take that away as an amenity, I get it, part of it's going to be developed, but you have a trail system or existing old fire roads is basically what those were there. So I'm hoping that they do keep that as available for the people to enjoy and incorporate that into our trail system.
If I may, Chair, just since we're in a discussion, to go back to that, approval of the Murrieta Hills, it was a pretty big topic, a pretty important topic that, no one really wanted to discuss because the trails are technically illegal on private property right now, but they will be annexed to the RCA. You are right. Those trails have been there for like 50 plus years, long time. Some fire roads, some dirt bike trails, things like that. And I think it made it very apparent through all the public support that those trails had at the commission and I think at the council level that it really tied together the city, this is my personal opinion, the city, the RCA, and the developer to kind of recognize that like this is a unique situation and we should embrace this instead of, the RCA maybe wanting to not and shut it down and preserve it and things like that. So I can't, voice it enough that I think it's super, super critical to keep that relationship good so those trails can stay around for hopefully mountain biking, horseback, and just hiking. Thanks.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. And I agree with you. I've mountain biked on by Sykes Ranch Park and then come to the abrupt stop at the backside of those homes there. So it would be nice to make that flow through trail there eventually. And Commissioner Wojcik brought up about the connectivity to neighboring jurisdictions. Can you kind of provide maybe a timeline of the Murrieta Creek and also maybe Warm Springs Creek? Because you see the partial connections right here or partial spots, but those are to connect to the other cities to the north and to the south there. What's kind of a timeline, or what are we thinking with your?
Time and money solves everything.
Yeah.
Again, we now have a document that will be a tool that will be guiding us. So once it goes through Planning Commission and is approved, and goes through City Council and is adopted, it will be the role of the Parks and Recreation Commission working with staff to identify where we go first. I would imagine that Murrieta Creek Trail will be one of the ones that is highest on that priority. Again, the first thing we need to do is get easements from the different property owners along the creek trail, and then look to try and get those bridges to those primary crossings. But a timeline is hard to pinpoint right now until we have this document, we kind of distill it, break it apart, and see what we can do first, and then look towards the funding of that, and kind of evaluate that. We're working closely with the Murrieta Creek Trail Committee as well, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to come to some sort of consensus on connecting the different elements from the northern part and the southern part soon.
Do we have anything in our development code when you look at the city to the north in Wildemar, and you go up now, as you go up where Washington turns into Palabar, and there's a new housing development going in, and of course you can see they have an easement for not only sidewalk, but a horse trail. If you go up Grand Avenue all the way from Clinton Keith and you continue on north, almost all the way to where their northern border at Lakeland Village there, they've kind of created or carved out an easement for a horse trail there. Do we have something like that in our development code that would help incorporate some of this trail system as more housing projects, or especially maybe down Washington, to the southern limits right there where you talk about the solar farm there? Do we have anything that would require that of any new development, or do we have that marked out, or is this document going to help us get there?
This document can certainly be the guide to get us there. I don't think so, but I'll defer to Mr. Steele.
Yeah, so part of what we'll be doing, Chair, with this is we'll be incorporating this into the general plan cleanup. So that's something we could talk about when the cleanup comes to you. I'm hoping later this year. We'll have probably a workshop in a few months. And that's something we could look at in the circulation element and include our public works folks in that discussion as well, public works and planning. But that's certainly something we can look at. But you have to take into account, how does it work? In that case, you're talking about building a trail, I guess, next to a road, and how much space do you have to make that work? And we could talk about that related to circulation, but it's not really before you tonight, right? So that's something for future discussion.
I realize that, but is this document going to kind of help us maybe get to that point to where now we have the foundation, we could actually, any other projects come online, or if we have something codified that would kind of help get us to incorporate the trail projects moving forward?
It does. I mean, I think as you alluded to, then we don't have a trails master plan, right? So we're adopting a trails master plan, which is great. So when there's development where these trails are, that's something we can look at, right? But we need to get this plan adopted, right?
Right. Yeah. I see theirs are more incorporated on the road, and I don't know how they did it, but they did it, and got some of the easements as you go up Grand Avenue there, but
You'll notice on Clinton Keith, the developments that are going in there, the condition was to include a DG trail next to the sidewalk.
Yep.
So wherever that is found in the general plan, that's what's being conditioned with the new developments.
Very good. That's all the comments that I have. Do we have a resolution, or do we just want to, how do you want to do this?
Chair, I can just read the recommendation. So yeah, there's not a resolution, it's just a straight recommendation to council. So 2 recommendations. First recommendation is to recommend to the City Council approval of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update and find the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update consistent with the general plan. And the second recommendation for the commission is to recommend to the City Council approval of the new Trails Master Plan and find the Trails Master Plan consistent with the general plan.
Okay, with that, looking for a motion and a second. I believe we're going to do this on the computer pads here. We got a motion by Commissioner Wojcik and a second by Commissioner DeSena. All right, I guess we need to register our votes. Madam Secretary, will there be something that comes up for us to register our votes, or we want to do a roll call if it's not?
Is it showing now?
Nope.
I have.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
Okay. No, we already got past that. Yeah. Okay, we have motion passed 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next discussion item that we have is the proposed additions to the capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2025, 2026, all the way through 2029, 2030, in conformance with the City of Murrieta General Plan 2035. May we have a staff report, please?
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Commission. Jennifer Terry, Finance Manager. With me tonight is RN Mendoza, Financial Analyst from our Finance Department. He'll be providing the main presentation. Also with us tonight is Jeff Hitch, excuse me, the City Engineer. And there's one project manager here in the audience. If you have any project-specific questions that you might have, they'll both be able to answer them. Tonight's action before the Planning Commission is to determine whether the proposed capital improvement plan projects are consistent with the goals and policies of the General Plan 2035. RN will provide a background of the CIP adoption process, a brief overview of the proposed new projects and the annual public works maintenance projects, and how those projects conform to the general plan policies. The City Council held a workshop for the CIP proposed projects on Tuesday, May 6th, where an in-depth discussion of each project was provided. So if anyone's interested in watching that, it was a great presentation, so I highly recommend. I'll now turn the presentation over to RN, and he'll give the presentation.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening, Chair, Commission, members of the Planning Commission, city staff, members of the public, RN Mendoza, financial analyst. This evening, we're going to be just going over a few items, 8 slides total actually on the presentation. It's a CIP background. We have new and annual CIP projects proposed for fiscal year 26. Some amendments through 2930, our proposed future action for the June 3rd action, and what is the recommended action before the Planning Commission tonight. I'll give a quick background on our CIP program. Our CIP is our long-range 5-year planning for all individual capital improvement projects and funding sources. The plan also implements a funding plan on one-time and non-reoccurring projects. This next slide lists of the new proposed projects. They were presented, as Jennifer mentioned, last Tuesday, May 6th. And an in-depth copy of the projects are actually included in your packet. They're so huge that we had to divide it into 4 parts, and also the full link is on the city's website. But tonight, we're presenting only the 17 projects, and Mr. Steele will explain the errata sheet that was also provided prior to the meeting to the members of the public and the commission. As required by Government Code Section 65401, city staff is bringing forward the proposed additions for the Planning Commission to review and report its conformity with the city's general plan. On Tuesday, June 3rd, City Council will hold a public hearing, and the proposed final CIP plan and budget will be presented and adopted. So there might be some changes on your packet versus the final adopted CIP plan on June 3rd. For tonight's presentation, there are a total of 5 new projects and 12 annual CIP projects, and they are subdivided into 6 categories. But the slide before you, we have the bridges, other improvements, and building categories. Essentially, the bridges category projects, they're here to address and conform to the circulation, infrastructure, and safety elements. An example of these projects are to continue and maintain and replace aging storm drain systems to ensure the provision of these services to all areas of the community. It also seeks to maintain emergency access in the event of an earthquake by engineering roadways to reduce damage to them. The projects identified as a new project is, as you know, the Hayes Avenue Bridge at Miller Canyon Creek. And also for the annual CIP project by Public Works is our citywide bridge preservation program. For buildings, it will address and conform to the several elements such as the land use, infrastructure, and safety elements of the general plan. It will help promote future patterns of development and land use that reduce infrastructure costs and make better use of existing and planned public facilities. It also provides community centers with equitably distributed locations and ensuring the public safety infrastructure and staff resources to keep up with the new planned. The projects identified are the library fire alarm system replacement and the library public address system. And lastly, under the other improvement category, it addresses and conforms to the information element economic development, such as a fiscally strong governance that meets the public service demands of residents and businesses, and to ensure that the CIP meets the city's needs and amend as necessary and adopt a CIP. The projects identified is our citywide ERP system and the citywide electric vehicle charging stations. Annually, we present to you, as well as the City Council, maintenance projects. This year, we're proposing 12 projects to this commission. These are our street and highways, storm drains, additional traffic signal projects and bridge preservation projects. These items have been previously reviewed by the Planning Commission to conform with the city's general plan to the circulation and infrastructure elements of the General Plan 2035. The projects, namely, as mentioned earlier, bridge preservation program, several pavement preservation programs like our asphalt and slurry seal. There's also our storm drain interceptor program and various traffic signal related projects. In total, there's 17 projects to be adopted by City Council on June 3rd. We plan to bring these on June 3rd, as mentioned, and we'd like to ask and recommend that the City Planning Commission find these items to be in conformance with the city's general plan. The recommendation before you is to adopt a resolution of the City Planning, resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Murrieta, California, making a finding to the City Council that the new proposed additions to the Capital Improvement Plan fiscal years 25, 26 through 30 are in conformance with the City of Murrieta General Plan 2035. And with that, I end my portion of the presentation. Hand it to Mr. Steele.
And Chair, I'll just mention, as Aaron said, there's an errata. It's available here on the dais for the commissioners as well as for the public in the audience. The errata is revision to the agenda report to reduce the number of projects in the report from 19 to 17, the new construction projects from 6 to 5, and the citywide annual recurring projects from 13 to 12. And then in Exhibit A, that eliminates the project of the Hancock widening traffic signal in Hancock Avenue, Walsh Center Drive, and then another project, the fiscal year 25-26 citywide street name sign replacement program. Those are both removed in Exhibit A. And then in Exhibit B, the applicable general plan project finding for the circulation element 2.4 to ensure roadway signage of adequate size is clearly conveyed is also removed, since that policy is not applicable if we remove that program. And that is the errata before you, which is part of the action with the recommendation. I'll turn it back over.
Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and start at the end. Mr. Commissioner LaPagula.
Okay, thank you. Why were these projects deleted, and how long are they deleted? I'm assuming not permanently, just for the next fiscal year?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that question. Thank you, Commissioner LaPaglia. The project for the Hancock in particular, this was a communication error from engineering to finance. We had identified that project needed to be added, kind of unrealizing, I'm going to say, not recognizing that project already exists in the CIP. So the Hancock widening project, we already have 8381 has been on the books for many years. And the reason for adding the project is we have several developments in that area that have developer cash and lieu funds that will be contributed. The terraces is one example. They will be contributing money towards a traffic signal at the intersection of Hancock and Walsh Center Drive. And so the intention was to add that to the list. Again, that project already exists as 8381, CIP 8381. There was no need to add a redundant project. So after I realized that I had made that mistake in my direction to finance, I asked it to be removed. And unfortunately, that took place after the agenda had already been reported. So that addresses that particular item. The other item is the sidewalk, the street name sign replacement program. As you've probably noticed, over the many years, we've been replacing the old green street name signs throughout the city to replace them with shiny new blue ones. The project is actually not complete yet, but we have existing funding in our existing street name sign programs. I think amounting to around $350,000, which is well more than we need to finish that program. So there was no need to add a new project for this year and then add additional funding for that project. So that was the reason why that project was deleted. So hopefully that answers those questions.
That does, and so if there's funding sitting in the account to replace the street signs, what's left to do? I guess just facilitate the actual construction of replacing them.
Correct.
Okay.
The city's been replacing, our maintenance crews replace them kind of on
I see, yeah.
on an available basis. They'll identify a neighborhood where it needs to be replaced, and as staff time persists, they'll identify, okay, order that neighborhood street name signs, and then they'll direct a staff member that happens to be available to go start replacing some of those. It was a kind of a cost savings measure as opposed to hiring a contractor to do it. We've just been using staff as needed.
Sure.
So it wasn't an immediate need to replace it, so it's kind of been one of these things that's been slowly evolving over the last 10 years. I'm not 100% sure how many neighborhoods are left. I'd have to research that. There can't be many.
No, that's okay. That's good. I support that. It's kind of it's good filler work. So good to be efficient when there's maybe an extra hour or something in a day or a gap, something that they can fill out or replace a sign. So
exactly,
that's pretty cool. Will we go into some of the other improvements later tonight or later? Or is that it for the presentation?
This evening's presentation is really only talking about, is similar to what we did last year. This presentation, I know in the years past, we've done a full CIP presentation of a kind of an update of where all the CIP projects stand. Last year, I believe we decided that the objective at this particular meeting is really to only focus on the items at hand, which is the addition of new projects to the CIP to determine whether they're in conformity with the general plan. Yeah. So that is really the focus, and so we're only presenting on those items this evening.
Okay.
If you have specific questions related to other items, and I'm sure we can answer some of those, but really the focus of this item is really only supposed to be these new projects.
Oh, no problem. I just it's always fun to see, like, each year, like, mostly things that have been completed and things that have been checked off, and all of us driving around the city, you see these things happen throughout the year, in different regions of the city. So I was just wondering if we were going to review that tonight, but no, great presentation. And
just a reminder, we do plan on doing that full update of where the CIP stands with the City Council on the June 3rd City Council meeting when we adopt the CIP. We'll plan on doing our standard meeting at that point in time where we'll give a full update on the CIP. So be sure to tune in for that.
I'll come attend that. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Sure thing.
Commissioner DeSena.
Great presentation. I have no questions.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I wasn't sure. Thank you very much. So I was looking at the Exhibit A to the resolution and the different projects, and a lot of them make sense to me about slurry coats and sidewalks and things like that. But one kind of struck me because I have no idea what it means. What is a citywide enterprise resource planning system, ERP? I have no idea what that means.
Great question. It is our financial software that we use here at the city, and it encompasses all facets of finance, accounts payable, accounts receivable, purchasing, budget, general accounting, payroll, and HR. And we've been using the same platform since 2010. It has been upgraded a few times, so it looks modern, but it has limitations. So we're looking to upgrade that software.
So this is like your number one priority.
It is, yes.
All right, that's the only question I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great presentation. A couple clarifications here. I was happy to see the box culvert extension. I think it was CIP 19008 on Murrieta Hot Spring overpassing line D. That's staying, or that's part of the CIP that did not get taken out.
That was actually added in last year's CIP, and that is currently in the CIP. Is the box culvert over line D at Murrieta Hot Springs.
Yeah, I think that's great timing with that too, and in light of some other projects that may or may not come online. Can you speak specifically, Jeff, maybe line G, line F, and some of those are not, my understanding, not going to move forward in this CIP at this point in time?
Well, when we say so we have existing projects that are in the CIP. Line F, for example, is a project that is moving forward. It's currently in design. So the fact that those projects don't show up here just means that they're not new projects, they're existing projects. Those projects will stay in the CIP as long as they're in the book. They're either actively being worked on or they're being contemplated to be worked on based on staffing availability. Like I said, Line F is, we've done an RFP of late to put that project on the street to get a consultant. We're in the process of doing that consultant selection. We'll eventually be taking to council an award to commence with the actual design work. It'll take several years to go through the design work and whatnot in coordination with flood control for a project like that. But that's a project that's actively being moved forward. Line D, the only project we have currently on Line D is that box there at Murrieta Hot Springs Road. Was recently identified as a need due to the development activity on both sides of Murrieta Hot Springs Road. There's really a need to get that box completed, as it just missed the development footprint for those two projects, and it became a capital need in order to get that done to be able to finish out the improvements there once those developments come in. Not a project that we're actively working on, meaning I don't have an engineer actively putting an RFP out together for that. That will be the next project that we get on the list, which will be probably in the next couple of months. It would be my guess.
And line G, did you, specifically going down Calmia right there, that's something that you're actively working on, although whether you got a consultant on board yet?
So line G is kind of more of an advanced planning kind of stage. We're kind of contemplating what to do with that project. Still at the moment has not really been fully scoped. We do not have plans at the moment to get a consultant on board in the near term. In fact, I think it's probably unlikely we'll probably have a consultant on board by the end of this fiscal year. It'll probably be early next year before we'd start contemplating getting a consultant on board. That's another massive drainage project. In addition to line F is another similar one. These are $10 to $15 million projects, and we likely would not have funding to be able to construct both of those. So it becomes a matter of figuring out prioritization and timing to be able to fund those projects. Those are also large-scale flood control style projects that are on our master drainage plan list. Those projects are subject to area drainage fees, and flood control oftentimes can provide funding for those. We've applied for funding for Line F in this last year's cycle with flood control. The Zone 7 is the zone that we're in with Riverside County Flood Control. We were not successful in getting funding this last year. It was not awarded. We will be applying again this year. Same thing. Eventually we will be applying for Line G as well when the time comes to be able to do that. Right now our focus is Line F. So that kind of gives you an idea of maybe the prioritization and kind of the focus that we're kind of spending on those.
Got it. Thank you. One other clarification question on, with the sidewalk repairs, and does that include gaps as well too? Maybe gaps in sidewalks to where, or are you just doing repairs and replacement based upon tree roots or things like that? And how does that come to your attention and you make a decision as to which ones get fixed?
So predominantly that project is mostly for repairs. It doesn't mean that we couldn't fill in gaps where gaps become prevalent. But that project is solely really defined specifically to do repair work. It's to identify there's a trip hazard or whatnot that needs to be repaired, or a lifted concrete. Everybody's seen the concrete panels that tilt up in the hot summer months. that's what it's designed to repair if our maintenance crew can't handle the project themselves. A lot of cases they can handle most of those, either doing a grinding or whatnot. Some cases it becomes too much of a repair, and that's when the capital project comes into play. We do have our pedestrian safety enhancement project, which normally those projects are focused on replacing curb ramps, but they can also replace sidewalk repairs. The idea behind the pedestrian safety enhancement project is utilizing community development block grant funds, which is applicable for ADA repairs or correcting ADA style issues. So anytime we have a deficient set of sidewalk panels that are problematic, or a missing piece of sidewalk that would fix an ADA deficiency that we have in the city, it would be applicable for those types of funds. So we occasionally will also be doing sidewalk gap replacement as part of our pedestrian safety enhancement projects. So, it's just another avenue where we have to replace sidewalks.
I just was curious how that was, because I noticed, I don't know if you've probably seen it, but on Nutmeg between Washington, right at Adams, right there.
Right.
I thought it was going to get resolved with the construction of the new apartments, and so sidewalk is now going west from Washington to about Adams, and there's about a 100-yard gap of where the sidewalk stopped from the development there. So I didn't know if that would be incorporated into the CIP, where that's a sidewalk gap and maybe a little bit of a street widening too, or if that's something that would require a whole separate CIP.
It's a good question. It's a known element. The reason that sidewalk is missing is because there's a power pole that's in conflict with the curb and gutter at that location. And so we've been, over the years, we had been working with Edison as far as getting that power pole relocated, which I think at one point they have done. However, I think the power pole is still in conflict, I think, with the curb and gutter. So there's still some work that needs to be done through there. It's not as easy as just putting a sidewalk in, unfortunately. We could put in a temporary sidewalk, and that's been contemplated. It is on our radar, and it's a part of the project that we oftentimes look at our pedestrian safety enhancement project to determine what the next appropriate locations are. We've been focusing on what we would call the critical curb ramps that are problematic in some of our school zones and things of that nature, where that have high pedestrian locations. Those have taken kind of some of the priority over some of these other locations. But that is on our radar as far as finding an appropriate time and place to do that.
And you'd addressed about removing the street sign replacement. I think we're on our third city manager when we started that project back in 2016, 2017. So it's been around for about 8 years, and it seems like it's gradually progressing. I'll just comment and just say, seemingly the cities to the north, Wildomar and Menifee, seem to be moving at a quicker pace of replacing their street signs from the old county street signs than we are. I'll just say, if you need a volunteer to help install them, I would help install them, because I do believe it's a sense of pride of having all the street signs match. Like I said, I've been here and policed the streets here for so long. We had the county street signs, then the first iteration of the city's street signs with the green background, white lettering, with actually had the 100 block or the 1,000 block on there, and then the reverse of that for the private roads. And then we went to the current version, which it's beautiful. I think it's the better, and also having the flip, the reverse of it with the white background and the blue lettering for the private roads. But in essence, as you drive around the city, there's 5 different street signs in the city, not including some of the like the Colony and things like that. And those things have been around for since the 1980s, and they're faded out and things like that. I know other cities have replaced all the private streets and things like that in their endeavor to be uniform. And if there's a quicker way of actually doing it, I know it's not in the CIP, you have funds. If it's manpower that you need, I'm sure you could probably find some volunteers that would help, I being one of them, to help facilitate that along. So rhetorical, you don't have to answer. I just share that with you, but I do think that that's any way to personally move it along, even though it's not in the CIP. I'll just leave it at that.
I do appreciate the comment, and
Yeah.
I'll certainly pass that along to our maintenance staff. We will look and see. When I last spoke to him, I had the impression that he was close to having it done, meaning within the next year. So I don't think there's that much left in the city to be done, but I will confirm. I honestly don't know how many signs that are still left that are the old green signs.
There's a lot of condo complexes. There's a lot of Colony being one of them. There's some.
Well, I would comment on, we are not replacing the signs within private streets. Those are not signs that we actively replace. They're on private roadways and they're not publicly maintained. So whenever we have publicly maintained or privately maintained streets, expending public funds to replace a sign that's privately maintained is not something that we spend our gas tax or Measure A fund, in this case it would be gas tax money, on. If that's a policy decision that our city council wants us to amend and change, certainly that's something we can consider. So, I mean, if those are comments that you'd like us to bring forward to see about doing those types of things, that's a consideration. Again, we always cross that line of utilizing public funds to do private improvements. Understanding the beautification element.
Yeah, I just see there's other cities around that I guess it's a policy decision. When you look, Canyon Lake is pretty much mostly gated. They're all private roads, those type of things like that. So it's a policy decision, or they could use Measure T if they decided to do it. But it's a policy decision. So.
Right.
Okay. With that, I don't have anything else. Do you have a resolution that you'd like to read, Carl?
Sure, if it pleases the chair. I can read the recommendation. The recommendation is to adopt a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Murrieta, California, making a finding to the City Council that the new proposed additions to the capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2025-26 through 2029-30 are in conformance with the City of Murrieta General Plan 2035, with the errata as read into the record following the presentation as part of the action.
Motion and a second on the screen here. We've got a motion by Commissioner LaPaglia, a second by Commissioner DeSena. And we'll look to vote. All right, looks like the motion passed 4-0. Moving on to city planner comments.
Sure, I have a few. So appreciate all the staff, the city staff that came out tonight, and really good job on all these items. A lot of work here by the staff. We do anticipate to have another meeting in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from tonight, we anticipate having a few items. I did want to mention the secretary and I will follow up with an email. Just wanted to plan ahead with the commissioners. I know summer vacations are coming up, so we'll reach out and see. I know folks make plans. I have also made summer plans, so let's see if we can coordinate that this year. So we'll send out an email and check with you. And then I also wanted to thank Judy Bellotti for being here, our assistant city attorney tonight, not Paul, our usual city attorney. So appreciate Judy being here. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Okay, with that, Madam City Attorney, do you have any comments?
No comments for me, just nice to meet everybody. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you too. Planning Commission comments, I'll start at the end again, Mr. Commissioner LaPaglia.
Judy, are you by chance in Paul's band or anything?
No.
No band there? Okay, all right, no relation. Okay. Carl, that's the 28th. In 2 weeks, we'll have a meeting on the 28th.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain we will.
Okay. All right. I have no comments. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for staff for sticking around. And that's all. Everyone enjoy their night. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner DeSena.
Thank you for the presentations, and I have no comments.
I appreciate all your hard work, and thank you for your presentations this evening. And with that, looking for consensus for an adjournment? All right. Meeting adjourned. Looks like 8 o'clock.
You're very welcome.